Welcome to the IAM Power Hour, where personal growth meets empowerment.
I'm Terry, and we're here to inspire, challenge, and help you transform your mindset.
And I'm Stacie. Today we're going to be talking about doomscrolling plus everything in between.
So let's get started and ignite the power in you.
Welcome to the IAM Power Hour. I'm Stacie, and I'm here with Terry. And we're so glad you joined us this episode. We're very, very excited about it because we are going to be talking about something that's kind of new that we've just started to hear about, and it's called doom scrolling.
Ooh, doom scrolling. It almost scares me. What about you, Stacie?
It scares me. It does. Doom scrolling definitely scares me because I am very guilty of doing it. Very, very much so. Even I would have to say, even this week, I got kind of wrapped up, went down a rabbit hole, and I am not very proud of myself, to say the least, when it comes to doom scrolling and getting caught up in stuff that I should not be watching and should not be listening to because it gets me so angry. Very, very much so. Very much so. Are you ever guilty of that?
Who, me?
Yes, you.
Never. I'm just kidding. Yeah, absolutely. I find myself a little guilty of that from time to time. And last show we talked about mindfulness and the power of now. So again, all of this is a practice to be able to actually be mindful of what we're taking into our minds and our bodies all of the time. So yes, I am excited about doing this. And I've been doing a lot of corporate trainings and things like that. And this kind of came up a few weeks back for me. And they asked me if I would do some trainings on this. And I was like, doom scrolling? What the heck? I hadn't even ever heard of it, but it turned out to be a word. It's a word in the dictionary. But so before we do get started though, how was your week? How was your week this week? Because you started your new position.
I did start my new position this past week. So, there was some up and downs in it, but I'm starting to feel my way and getting, more comfortable with it every day. I think the more access I get to the files that I'm supposed to have access to, it's going to really kind of open up some new doors for me. And I'm going to be able to jump in and really get working with it. A little bit of fear and intimidation in it as well, but fought through it and came out glorious on the other side. So I'm good with it. Yeah. But I will tell you though, going to be leading into this topic today. I've watched a lot of things that again should not have been watching, and I'm not very happy about it. That's all I have to say about it. I'm just not happy about it. I'm not happy about what is happening in our country right now. That's all I have to say about it. I'm just expressing that opinion. There we go.
You let it out, girl. We got to let it out somewhere. You got to let it out. We've got to be mindful, and we've got to understand that we've got to ground ourselves from time to time. But, even some of the best, you do this, you practice this, I practice it, but, sometimes it sneaks on up there. It's kind of like falling off the wagon, if you will.
Very much so. And it got me like with no warning at all. I would wake up just about every day angry. And the first thing I did, instead of trying to do something, that makes me happy in the morning, because usually I do, I found myself getting on my phone, finding, what is happening in the world, and get in just more and more angry. And it was not a good week. So hopefully I've buried the hatchet on it. And starting Monday, I'm going to get back to my normal routine where I play happy music in the morning to get myself pumped up for the workday and move on.
Be more mindful And remember those things we've talked about. What can you control? And, that happened to me somewhat this week too. But, there's been an alignment. The stars have been aligning. We've had a full moon. We've had the blood moon and the eclipse. I mean, all kinds of things are going on. And I actually went out and got up in the middle of the night and watched the eclipse the other night. And I have to say, around me, and I've never heard this before, dogs were howling constantly. So
Wow.
I do believe there is something going on in with all of that. And sometimes even us that try to be as mindful as possible and as positive as possible, still with all of these things changing. And even when I used to work in mental health, when there was a full moon, true to form, things happened. So
Yeah.
at least now maybe we've kind of made it past some of that
Until the next full moon.
until the next one. But this was special, with the lunar eclipse and all of the planets aligning. There's a lot of things happening. There's a lot of change happening, and there's a lot of things that are going on, even with um, the world outside of us. And, we don't just sit here and live in a bubble. And I don't want our audience to think that, because you've alluded to some of the things that are going on out there in the world. And we're going to dive into some of that as we get into some of this doom scrolling, if you will. So when we get back from break, let's go ahead and talk about what is doom scrolling, what is it? Is it really a word, and how it affects us? Welcome back to the IAM Power Hour, and I'm here with my beautiful co-host, Stacie Staton. And today we are talking about doom scrolling, if you will.
I like to
And
say that word. Dun dun dun.
I
Doom
know, I
scroll.
love it. Doom scrolling. But I actually, when I first heard about this, Stacie, I had to look it up. I was like, is this really a word? And it actually became a word that got popular during COVID-19. You remember those days back when we
I
were
do
all isolating?
Yes, very much so.
And there was so much going on, but it became an actual word in the Oxford English Dictionary in 2020. And then in 2023, which wasn't that long ago, it was recognized as an official word in Merriam-Webster. So I'm trying to catch up on all of this and prepare to do trainings on this. But as we're rolling through this, I just wanted to bring this out and talk about it, because what is it? And of course, if you think about it, you can probably figure it out. But I wanted to share exactly what the word means, and it says that doom scrolling actually refers to the act of continuously consuming negative news or social media content despite that you're already feeling anxious or distressed or overwhelmed, and it involves spending excessive time scrolling through the headlines or the articles. And you've worked in the media business before,
Hmm.
and we do those headlines for a teaser to try to get you in to read the articles. But we are
Right?
starting to move so fast these days that a lot of us probably, as we're scrolling, we read those headlines, we take that to gospel, and we don't go any further.
Yeah.
Makes sense?
I, yeah, I can see that, because it seems like society was, social media, and, whether it's TikTok, Facebook, they get their news in 10-second snippets and off you go, right?
Yeah.
And you just keep scrolling on.
Mm-hmm. And as it's turning out now, if the pandemic wasn't enough to raise our anxiety and depression and our mental health issues, this is having detrimental effects on our mental health, which is increasing our stress. And I do a lot of trainings on that. It's increasing our anxiety, our depression, and even causing us to have even more difficulty sleeping. So let's dive into this and talk about it. You mentioned at the very beginning, before we went on break, about you've gotten yourself caught up in this. And I have a tendency to do that too, listening to the news or looking at some of that stuff. But what happened with you?
Yeah, well, first off, I want to know why Webster all of a sudden is just letting any word into the dictionary these days, right? Shame on Webster. I don't know what's happening there. But, I don't, Terry, you know me, and I don't watch the news. I don't keep up on the news. I'm not somebody that has to sit and watch the news from 6 a.m. to noon. I think that was kind of something that our parents did. I know when I visit my parents, that is something that they do. And I'm like, how many times can you hear the same thing over and over and over? Because it's not changing. Headlines aren't changing from hour to hour, right? Watch 1 hour of it, you get everything, and then go about your day. If that's what you want to do. But me, I am not. I've always told my mom, I know bad things happen in the world. I know, but I don't have to sit and listen to them every day.
Yes.
Right? I just don't, because it weighs so heavy on me and makes me so upset that, I mean, sometimes I cry. I get so upset about what's going on in the world. And I got caught up in it. And before I knew it, just like you were saying, I wasn't sleeping because it was the last thing I was seeing before I decided to go to sleep. And my brain was just going and going and going. And by the time the end of the week rolled around, I was in such a foul mood. I didn't even want to talk to anybody. I mean, it was bad. If you probably would have talked to me, you would have gotten the rotten end of the stick.
Well, I'm glad I didn't call you.
Yeah, me too.
I'm glad I didn't.
Because I
And,
just would have went, okay, bye. Just hung up.
and this was your first week on your new position too.
With it being my first week in my new position too. Yeah. So not only was I kind of stressed out about that, right? But I hadn't been sleeping. I had all the craziness going through my head that, on social media, how do you decipher within 10 seconds? Is it true? Is it false? But I'm not a big fan of what's happening in the world right now. I am not a big fan of our administration. I will just say that right now. And what's going on, and the dismantlement of departments and things like that I think are vital to this country. And it just really makes me upset.
And it has truly affected me as well, being a speaker and a trainer and all of those types of things. And I think I even mentioned last week, I'm doing a lot of trainings where a lot of people are in a great state of fear of losing their jobs. They don't know from one day to the next if they're going to have a job.
That's
And
very true.
that is so stressful. I mean, you and I know I've been in those positions before where you don't know how secure you are in your job. And even in one of the trainings I did this week, we were talking about change, and we were talking about how the workforce has changed anyway. Back in my parents' day, and probably maybe even in yours, I know your parents were younger than mine, but when you got a job, you had that job. That was your career. That was your life. You stayed there. You got the gold watch at the end and the recognition, whatever the case may be. But jobs are not that way anymore, and they haven't been for a long time. But just the fear and the anxiety, and then, of course, the social media and the media and the news and the impact this is having on people. And people are trying to, get involved in, well, what is going on? And I get that because you need to know. But then it just is increasing your fear and your anxiety. And then you're falling into it where it's becoming an obsession in your mindset and in your brain. And that begins to take away from you doing things that are meaningful in your life, whether it's your relationships, they start to get affected. Even you, even saying with your parents, but even I, when my parents were still here, they had gotten caught up in a lot of that watching the news all day long, every day. And I would come up and I would take them to lunch and I would be like, you've got to stop, because they were talking to each other. They were talking to me like I was the enemy, you know? And I was like, you've got to stop watching this. This is affecting your mindset, your brain, your heart, your body, your stress. And
Yeah.
we've got to learn to be more, as we talked about last show, mindful of what you are taking in, because it is really beginning to warp a lot of people's way of being, thinking, and doing.
Well, just talking about it here, just for the few minutes that I kind of vented, man, like I'm like having a hot flash. Like, I mean, it has raised my blood pressure just sitting here thinking about it. That I just feel like I'm sweating. Like I could probably strip off all my clothes. I won't, but that's what I feel like I want to do, right? Because it's just has raised my blood pressure up, and I'm like now I'm like in fighting mood right now.
Yeah, yeah. I get it totally. I get it, because this is affecting your brain, it's affecting your stress and your tensing up. And even with me doing and talking a lot about stress, when we get really stressed, we tense up, we don't breathe, we constrict our blood flow, we constrict our air, and that's what begins to lead to disease states. And that is something else that is happening. We're being pulled away from, you know, other organizations, even with helping us with diseases and things like that. So this is really, really beginning to take hold of a lot of people. And my concern is not only is it taking hold of them, but it's also taking hold of them and how they are helping their children. And I think that's what we're going to talk about even next week, too, is talking about children, because, I do a lot of stuff with my Bridging the Gap training. But in the meantime, let's talk a little bit more about how this doom scrolling is affecting us. It's even causing so much anxiety and panic attacks with some people. And, what can we begin to do to take a break or to manage this habit that maybe we are falling into by doing this doom scrolling? So when we get back from break, let's have a chat about how we can better manage that. And I have a little bit of an upbeat opportunity to think about. That's another new word that we'll be adding in on the next after this break.
Parenting today isn't easy. Disconnections, stress, and misunderstandings leave us feeling overwhelmed. Kids are struggling with stress, anxiety, and social pressures. As parents and educators, we need the right tools to connect. Bridging the Gap training by Terry J. Walker is here to help. A powerful program designed to build strong relationships between parents, educators, and children. Discover real tools to help children develop self-esteem, confidence, and emotional intelligence. Together, we can bridge the gap and create a brighter future. Join us today at bridgingthegaptraining.com.
Welcome back to the IAM Power Hour, where this episode we are talking about doom scrolling. And before we went to break, we were talking a little bit about how it affects people, what it does. And Terry, as you can tell, I had to strip off my sweatshirt because I was getting a little hot under the collar. It was just talking about it raises my blood pressure. And some of the things, yes, I watch it and I shouldn't because I know how it affects me. But I think some of the things that bother me the most is that there are things happening in our country that some people in our society think it's okay. And I think it's because they don't understand. They don't understand that it's not okay. Or, and I know everybody has the right to their opinion and I get it. But what I don't get is ignorance. I don't get it.
As I take a deep breath, I'm right there with you.
I need about 5 deep breaths right now.
Are they the people that are constantly involved in that doom scrolling? They read a little segment and that must be the way it is, and then their anger, their stress, their hate comes out, and then they start attacking other people. I've never seen in my lifetime of all of the people and the relationships that are being affected by this, whether it's colleagues, whether it's friendships, longtime friendships, whether it's family relationships and families splitting up. What is happening here? And how is this happening? Because used to, and I got in my family, I call them my in-laws and my outlaws. I got both. I mean, and we all probably do have our in-laws and our outlaws. But when we came together, we at least tried to get along, in whatever capacity for whatever time that was supposed to be. That's what we did. But now people can't even go to the dinner table or have a holiday or celebrate an event or a cookout or whatever the case may be. And if maybe there's some drinking or anything like that involved, then it can really escalate and get worse. But people are, ending their relationships over this. And this really, really bothers me because I even train and teach on relationships. We've all got them. And a relationship isn't just an intimate thing between you and one other person. Your relationship is between you and your partner, you and your children, you and your friends, your community, your neighbors, your colleagues, and the list goes on and on and on. These are relationships that may have been formed years ago that are now splitting over opinions, over doom scrolling, over listening to media that may or may not be true, and allowing our stress and our anxiety to go up, and then we're taking it out on other people. And plus, we're affecting our own health and well-being.
Yeah. I was out last weekend with some friends to dinner.
Mm-hmm.
And we were talking about what was going on in our nation and was not very happy. And I'm sure a very nice person on any other given day walked in and they had on a jersey, and on the back of the jersey there was a picture of the White House, our current administration, and underneath it said, "Daddy's home."
Oh.
And that woman must have kind of overheard our conversation because she walked over to our table and was the meanest person to us and basically told us we didn't know what we were talking about. Do you know it took everything I had not to stand up and knock her on her derriere? Yeah, it was pretty horrible. I wanted to spray paint her up one side and down the other.
And all this is doing is creating hate. How many times have you been in a restaurant out with friends and other people come and go and nobody pays attention to anybody else? But it's almost like sometimes people are looking just to make that aggression. And that I do not understand.
I didn't understand it.
And something similar happened to me yesterday. I went out to play golf, and something similar happened to me yesterday. A guy came up on top of us, and this is in the many, 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 did I say many years? I have played golf probably longer than this person has been alive. I'm going to just tell you. And never have I experienced what I experienced yesterday. And he came up on top of us. He was threatening. And we were waiting behind another team that was in front of us very slow. He played into us, almost got us hurt. And I ended up leaving the golf course. I was so angry and mad. And he had some of those flags flying. And we weren't bothering him. But he was pulling up on us. He was playing into us. He almost drove his cart up on the green where I was at. And it's just absolutely unbelievable of the anger and the divisiveness that is taking place. And I think a lot of it may begin with this doom scrolling, whether it's through, well, it has to be through the media. Or is that all we're taking in? Have we lost our sense of well being, our sense of kindness and respect to one another? No matter
I
who
think,
you are, no matter what color you are, no matter what gender you are. My partner that I was playing with was another female. Two women waiting on a foursome in front of them, and this man, who, by the way, had a child with him that was like 7, acting this way toward us.
it's
It was
almost like,
threatening. We had done nothing, and I had worked so hard and was so excited to be able to go out there to that course and play and finally get out and enjoy the day. You know, we talked about mindfulness, get out and enjoy nature, do something you love to do. And that's exactly what we were doing, and almost got attacked.
and that's what
But
kind
we
of
were
makes
waiting behind somebody else.
that what makes me so upset, that it seems like so many people believe now that they are, I'm not going to say above the law, but
Yes.
they believe that they have maybe more rights than somebody else, and that they can be in, act in that manner. But what really kind of bums me out is that he had a child with him that are learning these habits from him, to
Yeah.
where, guess how this kid's going to be when he grows up? Hopefully not, but it could happen, right? He sees my dad doing it. Oh, so then it's okay. So
Exactly.
what are we growing in our younger generation?
And that's my great fear too. It is. And that's why I even created Bridging the Gap training. But we will talk about that at another time. But absolutely, that is my fear, that these people have become so angry, so justified in their hate, and they're absorbing more and more hate. You know, that it's just getting to the place where, no one feels safe to just go out and play a round of golf, to go out and have dinner with friends. What is happening to us? Because the one thing that we have in common is humanity. And I feel as though we're beginning to lose that. And I do think that this doom scrolling is possibly a big factor of that, because we're absorbing that in the brain. It is affecting our mental health and well-being. And we've talked about some of that. We're not mindful. We're not respectful. We don't care. If you don't see it my way, then it's the highway for you, or I'll attack you verbally and possibly even physically. I mean, people are not feeling safe. They're not feeling safe in their jobs right now. And a lot of people are running in fear. And there's so much of that happening. And I'm very, very deeply concerned about this. And so I want to thank you for helping me to bring the IAM Power Hour back, because I think now is more relevant than ever before to
Yeah.
get people to look at their own self and how they're treating themselves, what they're feeding their minds and their bodies, and in turn, how they're acting and treating those around them. So let's talk about how we can begin to manage this habit that many of us may have fallen into of doom scrolling. What are some things that we can begin to do?
Well, I think, Terry, just kind of touching on your point, that it's as they say, you are what you eat, right? You are what you watch as
Yeah,
well. So I know some of the things that I'm going to be back implementing is to put down the phone, right? Get out of the habit of picking it up, because every week I get that, hey, you've been on your phone so many times. I was on my phone last week 56 more minutes than the week prior.
oh wow.
And I was like, oh, this has to stop.
Yeah,
So that is one thing that I'm going to be definitely mindful about, is not picking it up every chance I get, flipping on either Facebook or flipping on TikTok and seeing what's going on. going to have to be definitely more mindful in how often I'm on my phone and where it's at, and not watching it during specific times of the day and all those things. So that's one thing, my habit I'm going to have to break, because it was so easy to get into it, and I'm going to have to break it. I'm going to have to get back out of it.
And it's a habit. You know, back when I was growing up, we were always told to make sure we had a quarter or a dime, and then later inflation went to a quarter.
That's
Have a
right.
quarter,
There's a
have a
quarter,
quarter in your pocket in case
cheaper.
something happened. You need to find a phone on the
Right.
corner to call somebody for help. You know, that's how I grew up. You know, and then you hope that the phone was still attached, because somebody might have gotten mad talking to somebody and then they broke it. But if you needed it, but you know, we've gotten in such a habit of putting those phones. We carried in our pockets, we carried in our purses, we carried everywhere we go. We are just naked, if you will, since you stripped off some of your clothes. We're naked without it. I mean, that's how we feel, I think. And you know, where's my phone? I've got to look at this, and I might be missing something. And we're doing it at work, we're doing it at home, we're trying to keep up, and we're just scrolling through all this stuff. And maybe another thing that we can begin to do is, you know, not only be so much more mindful of picking it up all the time, but making time to where we leave it somewhere. You know, leave it on the nightstand, put it in a basket somewhere, and spend some time with your fur babies, with your partner, with your friends, with your family, with your kids. Go outside. It's going to be okay. That phone will be there when you get back. But, you know, something to be
You
able
you
to get away from some of that.
you've said that, which is funny, because the other day I left the house and I have a, a smart device in my car, let's say, and it pings me that your phone is not connected. And I realized I didn't have my phone on me, and I was already out of the driveway getting ready to turn off my street. And for a quick second, it hit me, oh, I need to go back and get it. And then for a minute, I was like, no, you know what? It's going to be okay. And I left and I went and I did my day of what I was going to do. And it was like I almost felt free. I know that sounds weird, but I was like, nobody can get a hold of me. I don't need anybody to get a hold of me, right? I was just like, I'm okay. I can go. My phone's okay. It's at home. Nothing's going to happen. You know, if something did happen, somebody would pull over and help me. It's okay. You know, I'm not going to get lost in the woods. So it was very kind of freeing, I must say. I really enjoyed it. I'll have to do that more often.
Absolutely. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
Have a dollar and borrow a phone. You know, you need one.
Yeah. If somebody would let you borrow it, for sure.
Exactly. But you know, another thing that we can begin to do is, if we've got this phone and we've got all of these notifications, and I know when I just got a new phone and my son, it was going ding, ding, ding. And he's like, what is that? And my son's telling me, what is that? And I'm like, I got all these notifications. And he was like, get rid of them. You don't need them. I mean, it was news breaks. It was this, it was that. I don't even know where they came from. And he was like, get rid of them. You don't need them. And I was like, I don't know how. Because you know me, I'm not the
That's true.
IT technical person, but he helped me to get rid of some of that stuff, but opt out of some of those notifications. You don't need them all. And are you using your device, or is your device using you? Just like you just said about the freedom, feeling free for a minute, you got away from it. And it's like, I need to use that for what the purpose is. Or is it using me? And
Yeah.
that's
Too
something
many.
to maybe think about and ask yourself.
Yeah. Too many
I'm having
people.
a piece of electronic to run my life.
Yeah. I mean, we say how children, right, iPads. Oh, we take their gamer away, they throw fits. You know, you take a phone away from an adult, guess what age they turn into?
Ooh,
Just
exactly.
saying.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
And
And we're
you know,
teaching them at such a young age by giving them a Game Boy or a tablet or even a phone at 2 years old and going, here, just play with it. It's a new babysitter. Here, I don't
exactly.
need to deal with you. Here's the phone. And it's just,
And they have no idea what else to, this is how they're growing up. And they don't know about getting outside and throwing a ball. They don't know about going for a walk and taking some deep breaths and grounding yourself. They know about playing video games. They know about being on those phones, and that's all that they have ever learned. And that decreases their ability of communication and socialization. And I go back to how angry people seem to be, and that communication and is going away, socialization is going away. Whatever happened to manners on a golf course? You just, there are certain respect that you do, and this person had none. But even that respect, that lack of communication, and people spending all their time involved in reading and watching these videos, whether it's YouTube, TikTok, whatever the case may be. And granted, I do that too, but I always try to watch things that are positive for me. And, you know, working to set it down and replacing that time with something positive, a positive activity, communication, all of these things that we even talked about in the last show about being mindful and the power of now. We've covered a lot of this. And if there's some things that you may have missed, go back and watch the mindfulness or the resilience show. And as we continue to go along, because we're building on these, but there is some good news too. I learned another word.
uh-oh. You and your new words, Terry, could be kind of scary.
Well, I'm going to give you a hint, and then I'm going to let you take us out to break. But I'm going to give you a hint. I'm going to sing a little song. How about that? Oh, I've got joy, 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 joy down in my heart. So you go. Take it away, Stacie.
I don't know that song very well, but I'll just say, you know what? We'll talk about joy scrolling after the break. Welcome back to the IAM Power Hour, where we are talking about doom scrolling. But before we went to the break, we actually changed the wording, and now we are going to be talking about just the opposite, enjoy scrolling, which makes me so happy because I love joy scrolling, and I'm very good at joy scrolling. Terry, I'm just going to let you know right now that when I think of joy scrolling, when I look at things, because, we're coming into spring, I'm a huge gardening fan, right? I love to grow my own vegetables. And right now, one of my new habits, if I have to get into it, would be to look up things on growing different vegetables and looking at tips and tricks. Like right now, I've started a raised garden bed off of a woman that I watch about homesteading, which I'm a big fan of. So that's how I'm joy scrolling. What about you? How do you joy scroll?
Well, as I joy scroll, I do things that I'm involved in groups that are positive mindset by people that I admire and things like that. So I go over there and they post a lot of things. And of course, even on my publications page, I try to keep up and post some things that are positive and try to stay in that mindset of reading things that are positive, that affect me, that are good for me. And I also am involved in different types of groups or pages that bring that into my newsfeed. And so I try to stay on that. And as I'm going down through there, if I see something that is doomsday, I may look at it briefly and then I move on. I don't stick with it. I don't comment. I don't put an emoji. I don't do any of those types of things because I don't want anybody coming back at me or even recognizing what I may be commenting on or not. So, with that being said, I try to stay as clear from that as I possibly can and stay into that joy, joy, joy down in my heart scrolling, if you will, because that helps people. If you're going to be on social media or you're going to be doing things like that, that helps people to feel connected in a positive way versus this divisiveness and disconnected and negative. And, last time we even talked about we have two wolves battling within us, and one's very dark and angry, and one's very light. So, which one are you choosing to feed? Well, I'm choosing to feed something that's going to be more positive for my mindset. And as far as the TV or any of that kind of thing is concerned, I have control. You said a couple of weeks ago, what can you control? And you said the remote, and that's absolutely the case. So, are you spending hours upon hours upon hours feeding yourself the dooms? I'm not saying don't stay up to date if that's what you feel you need to do. But what I am saying is don't keep feeding yourself that to the point that your mental and emotional health and well-being begin to suffer. And it can happen quicker than you think because you, Stacie, even you who is mindful and doesn't do that, got caught up in it before you knew it. And it was
Sure did.
already affecting you.
Yeah, got sucked right up into it like nobody's business, boy.
And it'll
It,
get
it
you, and
was,
it'll get you quick. And when you least expect it, it's
yeah,
gonna smack you upside the head. But finding a way to joy scroll, watching what you're watching what you're taking in. Is it something positive? Turning that stuff off and turning on your favorite album, music, CD, radio, whatever the case may be. Listen to things that's going to uplift you, give you some joy, joy, joy down in your heart to help you to feel better, to go outside, to go for that walk. But that joy scrolling, consuming things that are more positive and in alignment with the truth of who you are. Find things that you're interested in. If you're going to be on social media, look for those things you're interested in, like you did, with the gardening and things like that. What are your hobbies? There are certainly, we have a world of information at our fingertips. There are certainly groups out there that may, you can join, get involved in social media, whatever the case may be, that are doing things that are hobbies of things that you enjoy doing, or book clubs if you like to read, or any of those types of things. But you can actually fix your feed with accounts or websites that align to your interests and more positive emotions for you. But have that willingness to set those boundaries. And oftentimes we forget to. But set that boundary, even on the amount of screen time you're doing. Be mindful. Be mindful of what you're taking in.
yeah, definitely. My brain right now is just kind of soaking that in and knowing that it's going to, it's going to be okay.
Yeah.
Everything's going to be okay. So I keep telling myself and singing that little, song. Everything's going to be all right.
There you go.
That's
And
my, yeah, that's my song.
but it's all up to you and what you are willing to accept and tolerate and what you're not willing to accept and tolerate. And for me, I've had to change and decide. If I'm going to watch some news, I give myself a timer. I see what I need to see because things are changing so much each and every day, and I turn it off and I change it to something else. And that's it.
Yeah.
And if
I
there's
think if we
something I
all,
feel I need to research, I research it. I don't just take everything at face value.
yeah, I think good things is to set boundaries, especially for me, right? I need to be able to have those boundaries. I have boundaries anywhere, everywhere else in my life, right? I
Yes,
need
you do.
I need to be able to create a boundary with this too. Definitely. So
And seek out that positive content. So set those boundaries, seek out that positive content, get outside, leave your phone over to the side for a while. It's okay if it's not in your hand, your pocketbook, or your pocket
that's right.
24 hours a day. It's okay. It's going to be
That's
okay.
right.
I promise.
It will be okay, I promise.
Everything's
Terry,
going to be okay.
yeah, this was a pretty heavy discussion we've just had. I mean, it really, really was heavy. My brain has a lot to um, shift through, right, and kind of debrief on, and just kind of go. And it was good. I think this conversation. I think these conversations that we're having need are important, especially when it comes to what's happening in our world today. And I think families should be able to sit down and have those conversations as well if they choose to, right,
Right.
with whoever, and not get upset about it. So I hope today has helped, a lot of our viewers be able to kind of take some breaks and step away and realize, that it's okay to put down the phone and take some deep breaths and not get so upset.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's something that we all need to be mindful of on a regular, daily, and sometimes minute by minute basis. Coming from the world of addiction, the first step to recovery is admitting we have a problem. So with that, it doesn't have to mean that we are addicted to drugs or alcohol, but are we addicted to that phone? And are we addicted to what kind of scrolling are we addicted to? Are we living in that? And in turn, how is that helping us to treat ourselves with kindness and trust and respect? And in turn, treating others around us, whether it's our relationships, our friendships, or whatever, with kindness, trust, and respect. To be able to go out and feel safe with having a conversation with friends and someone else not just passing by over here and attacking you. This has got to stop. We've allowed ourselves to get to this place. So the next question becomes, are we willing to set those boundaries? Are we willing to watch what we're taking in? Are we willing to make positive changes for ourselves? Because we're a lot better united and together than we are divided and hating and criticizing and demeaning others. So take this opportunity to find some joy, to find some time, to set some boundaries, and to take heed of what you're watching, what you're listening to, what you're reading, and what you're taking in. And if it's something that affects you, research it before you just get all angry and upset, rather than just taking a headline and a couple of the first sentences and you know everything there is to know. Because we're in such a hurry these days. We've got what, a 10-second attention span? So in those 10-second attention spans, is that all we're taking in? And that's just getting us more and more stressed, and we think we know everything, and we're becoming angrier and angry at one another. And as I said, the one thing we all have in common is humanity. So let's start bringing the light instead of living in the dark. I'm going to flip it back over to you and let you talk about the mailbag, and we'll wrap this puppy up. What do you think?
sounds sounds good, because I was about ready to break in and go, man, we're getting deep, we're low. We got to get some happiness back into this room, right? We need to kind of
Joy.
get uplifted. But yeah, no, I'm excited to know what's coming up for next week, as we're going to be talking about parenting in an ever-changing world. And this is going to probably be one of my favorite episodes that we're going to be talking about because, being a single mom, raising a daughter, we've had our struggles, we've had our ups and downs, but we managed to get through it. And now, I couldn't be a more proud mom. And I'm sure Terry, with your own son, the struggles he's been through and, with the world as it is and how it's changing and more technology. And now there's AI and all these things that are going to be affecting this whole new generation coming up. It's going to be interesting to see how we can keep our children on the right path.
Yes, yes, yes. And I'm very excited about this episode too. So, and the other thing too, I wanted to mention, and I know you normally do, but I'm going to go ahead and throw that out there, is we have this mailbag, and we do want to hear from you. Let us know your thoughts of what you thought. If you watched this show or any of the others, we want to hear from you. We want to hear your input, good, bad, ugly, or indifferent. We want to hear from you. Tell us your thoughts. And how can they do that, Stacie?
Oh, it's simple. Just email the IAM Power Hour at gmail.com.
There you go. IAM Power Hour at gmail.com. I love it. I love it. Well,
Yes.
You know what? I think that pretty much can wrap us up for the day of this episode of the IAM Power Hour, where we spoke on doom scrolling. But
Dun, dun, dun.
we updated it with a little joy, joy, joy scrolling as well.
That's true. And we hope you're walking away with some inspiration and maybe even a new perspective.
I love it, Stacie, and I love having you here with me. And I love hearing from all of you. So please make sure you email us at iampowerhour@gmail.com. And until next time, keep shining, stay curious, and as always,
Own your power.
own your power. I love it. See you next time.
Bye.
Thank you for watching the I Am Power Hour with your hosts, Terry J. Walker and Stacie Staton. If you'd like to email the show, you can email us at the IAM Power Hour at gmail.com.